What's up, Tiger Gang? It's JT from the Poko Moonshine Family. We're back again with another episode of Chatting with Carnivores. Today we got Rebecca from Carnivore Wellness. How you doing, Rebecca?
I am great, JT. Thank you. Thank you for having me on today.
Absolutely. I love sharing stories, and I would love to help you share your story. And you've got other things going on too in the carnivore scene, so I'd like to help you spread that as well. But let's start out. Where are you from, and where are you at now,
Oh,
location-wise?
that's a good question. I'm originally from Georgia, born and raised there. Went to University of Georgia, go Dogs. And after college, I hiked the Appalachian Trail. And then after that, moved to Montana, hopped around a little more, Texas, North Carolina, back to Montana, Oklahoma, Arkansas, California, and we are now settled in Eastern Tennessee. So
Tennessee.
it's been a bit of a transition, but my husband started travel nursing at the start of like spring of 2020. When all that was going on. So we're just now settling into this area here, I guess, since this last spring.
What's your favorite part about Tennessee?
Oh man, the mountains, the hiking, the outdoor access, the way the wind blows through the leaves in the trees, just the streams, everything about the nature scene here just fills my soul. It is amazing.
You mentioned hiking the Appalachians.
Yes, yes.
I heard there's feral people out there in those deep ass woods out there. You got to be careful.
I'm not gonna lie, there were definitely stretches of the trail where we were told, look out, watch out, travel in groups and be mindful. So, but for the
Well,
most part, it was a great experience. Everyone was friendly. There's a lot of trail camaraderie, kind of similar to the carnivore sphere. You're all
yeah,
in this adventure and this journey of transformation together.
that's so awesome. I would, especially around nighttime, I would probably start to get a little nervous. Just I'm a city boy, so I'm like, what was that noise? What was that?
Oh
I heard a
yeah,
branch snap.
for sure. Yeah, there were definitely some of those nights.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's fun. Well, you obviously made it out. You're a tough soul, so that's awesome. You got to video some of that and put it up on the channel. I'd love to watch.
Oh, I know it. I know it. Yeah. Whenever my husband and I, we have dreams of doing it again once the kids are out of high school. So, still several years away. They're still
Oh
very
yeah.
young, but that's on the books.
How many kids do you have?
I have two young kids. So my oldest is my daughter, and she is 4.5, and then my son is 3. So
Oh,
they're pretty
young
close in
bucks. You
age,
got young
17
bucks
months
at
apart.
home. That's fun. And are you doing the carnivore diet or low carb or anything with your kids?
It's a great question. So, in a perfect world, I would love to answer yes, but I don't live in a perfect world. And so, when I first started changing my diet, I would slowly kind of influence theirs. And I definitely pulled a lot of things out of their diet, like all of the artificial dyes. I started pulling gluten for a time there. I made sure all of that was out. Seed oils, I'm still very mindful about that and the dyes. But they are eating more of a whole foods based diet where they still get some treats from time to time. Unfortunately, I didn't come to carnivore early enough to kind of guide their taste buds, and they've definitely indulged in the sugar treats that, the sad diet loves to promote. So, it's really just about finding that balance for them and helping them learn as they consume foods that maybe are not ideal, helping them recognize their body's response to that. Or, if they're going to have something that's a little sweeter or whatnot, I'll kind of remind them, hey, if you're going to have this, you're going to have to work a little bit harder to keep your emotions calm and to stay kind and be in charge of the way that you feel. So they're mindful. And my daughter, she's always asking, Mom, is that protein? Oh, does this have sugar in it? So I mean, they're mindful. They know
Very
what they're
smart.
eating.
They're very smart. My son once in a while still has an Oreo cookie. He goes,
Oh,
"Ookie, ookie." I'm like, "Oh boy, he wants another ookie." Oh boy.
mm-hmm. Right.
But what brought you to the carnivore dance? What were your health issues, or what was going on with you, Rebecca? Fill us in.
Thank you. Yeah. So from the outside looking in, I looked like a perfectly normal, healthy individual. And in fact, that's what my doctors told me when I would go into checkups. They just said, oh, okay, great. Average, healthy young woman. Check and send me on my way. However, that was not the case. That's not what was going on inside my body. So just to kind of back up and give you some background, before I had children, I was a hedonistic, living for the moment, party loving animal. And, lots of
Me.
daily drinking, daily smoking weed, and a lot of coffee, staying up late, just really not doing the things that, help us feel good and thrive.
Hey, we were
So
young and invincible, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly, and I was
Nobody
just
can
putting
stop
off.
us.
Yep, I was putting off, all of my health concerns until later because I figured I'm young, I'll be fine, and I was for a time. However, after I had kids, that was when a lot of things shifted in my body physically and mentally. So, after the birth of my first child, my hormones were really off, and I struggled a lot with postpartum anxiety and depression. And with my first child, it was more so the anxiety. And it was very crippling to the point that I couldn't go to the grocery store, even though I was a stay-at-home mom with all the free time. I couldn't do it. It was too much for me to overcome that barrier to leave the house and have to go engage in any kind of social interaction. And, just a lot of ruminating thoughts, a lot of worry, a lot of overthinking, second guessing myself, and a lot of negative self talk. And then after the birth of my son, that returned. And I kind of knew what I was dealing with. Okay. But it quickly slipped into being more of the experience of postpartum depression. And that was really hard for me because here I was with these two beautiful children, and my little son, he was a happy, wonderful little baby, totally did everything by the books that you would hope a baby would do. And yet, there were times when I was nursing him and I'd want to throw him across the room, or he would wake up crying and I had to get up and respond to his cries in the middle of the night. And I was just in this full blown rage to the point that I would have to wake my husband and tell him I don't think that he and I are safe. I really was questioning my ability to parent in those moments and to be there and to be present with my son in a way that was safe. And that was utterly terrifying because no mom wants to become a mom and then not have a connection with her children. That's so painful. So it went on like this for quite some time. And, everyone talks about postpartum blues and that's normal, but what I was experiencing was not normal. And it was definitely, protracted by the fact that my hormones were so imbalanced and I was not eating nourishing, nutrient dense foods. I definitely wasn't getting enough healthy animal fats in my diet. I was very carb driven. That kind of poor lifestyle choice and behavior definitely carried over. And as the stress of motherhood and sleeplessness mounted, I continued to drink excess coffee. And I really found that I only had an appetite for sugar and for those quick carbs. I didn't ever want to eat a meal sit down and eat a proper meal. So I was running off of sugar and caffeine nonstop. Meanwhile, now that I know what I know, I was totally torching my adrenal system and taxing my adrenal system, and it continued to cause me a lot of stress and distress. And at one point I ended up going on medication. I had to get on Zoloft because I was having thoughts of no longer continuing to live. And it wasn't necessarily suicidal thoughts, but it's ideation of death, right, and of feeling useless and worthless. And I knew that I was crossing that line into very dangerous territory. So I did get on medication for a time, which I will say maybe was a good thing in that moment because I didn't have the tools to do anything different. I did not know that I could leverage my hormones using diet and lifestyle measures. That information was totally absent for me. And so I was on this medication. And while it kept my lows from being quite so low, it also kept my highs from being quite so high. So I operated in this middle zone of complacency. And I got to tell you, when you have two young children, both under the age of 2, if you do not experience the joys of motherhood to balance out the daily demands and relentless pressure to be there and show up for them, then that creates a huge, I don't know, for me, it showed up as an identity crisis. I did not know who I was. I didn't recognize myself. So that remained very difficult for me. And I reached a point where, I thought, okay, this maybe will fade in time. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. So I continued to drink too much coffee. I started smoking a lot more weed because, for those moments when I would get really teed up and the rage was so high, I could mitigate that by stepping outside, smoking a little reefer, coming
Yep.
back in, and I would be so much better and chill. And that was a band-aid and it worked for me for a time. However, as I've mentioned, these other lifestyle habits were not helping me move in the right direction ultimately. So my wake-up call came a few months after I'd quit nursing my son. So he was probably a year and a half. So it was the end of 2020, and I believe, no, the end of 2021, excuse me. And I turned 31 and I felt like teetotal crap. And within a couple days of turning 31, I even had an episode where I pooped my pants unexpectedly. Like my digestive system was basically revolting from
Mm.
all of the nonsense that I was eating, consuming, drinking, etc. And I kind of just had this hard look of thinking, if this is what the next 31 years are like, I don't want to do it. Because if this is what aging has in store for me, this is not an enjoyable life. This is not a quality of life that I want to participate in. And so I knew I had to get things together, but I was not yet ready to make severe lifestyle changes and shifts. So I looked into supplements and I got a few supplements that promised to help restore my hormones. And I don't know, maybe they did something, but I really don't think they did. Um, the real change didn't happen until January of 2022 when I kind of took that step back and realized, look, I've got to get my drinking under control because I'd go through times where I would limit my drinking and, I'd cut it all off for a month or two. And then I'd say, oh, I can have a little bit. And so I'd have one, but that one would become two. And very quickly, within just a matter of weeks, I'm back to drinking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beers a night. And so I knew I could not moderate. So for January of 2022, I did dry January and I abstained from alcohol. I was mostly successful, though I did have a few slip ups. But I didn't beat myself up for that. But I did notice that during that time of eliminating alcohol, I was leaning heavily on the sugar. I was replacing one carb for the next. And, so maybe that's better than, just not than continuing to drink, but it really wasn't helping me metabolically. And so at this point, I quit nursing my son. I was starting to see a little weight gather at my midsection, and I really just wanted to lose kind of like 10 pounds of vanity weight. And I thought, okay, well, what if I just do intermittent fasting? And then that'll allow me to eat whatever I want during my eating window. And then I'll just lose the weight and that'll be great. Problem solved. I won't have to make that many lifestyle changes. Well, I tried to intermittent fast and I found that I could not even go the 8 hours overnight. I was literally eating right before bed, like 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then waking up super early, 5 o'clock in the morning, pouring a whole bunch of honey into my coffee, and very quickly starting the day just snacking, eating all day long. So I couldn't fast, and that was kind of another big kick in the pants that, whoa, wait a minute, metabolically, I'm really unhealthy. This is not normal. I should be able to go 3, 4, 5, even 6 hours between meals without feeling like, I'm on the verge of rage or that I'm going to collapse and, having mental brain fog and whatnot. So that's when I started down the keto diet, and that brought immense benefits. It took a solid 11 days of white knuckling cravings, and I so wish that I had then the tool of carnivore and nourishing my body with nutrient dense foods and healthy saturated animal fats. But I didn't know about that, so I was white knuckling these cravings and tracking everything that I was eating, and it was very challenging. But over time, I, kind of started to become fat adapted. And being in a ketogenic state really calmed my mental state. So the brain fog cleared out. I felt very calm, very peaceful, centered, and I was so much better with my kids. My interactions with them totally shifted. And I think they noticed. They became a lot more open and responsive. I became more silly and playful. And really just that's when it felt like things were starting to lift. So I knew I was onto something. And I started diving into more of the keto science behind everything, reading a ton of books. I love to read, just soak up new information. A lot of us find ourselves in that same boat.
Love book.
And it really empowered me to want to stick with a ketogenic diet. However, I really faced challenges around the tracking because I still had a lot of cravings. So even though I was only eating keto friendly foods, I would still binge on keto friendly food. So I just try to eat just a small serve, always holding out on my carb count for that chocolate bar at the end of the day. And ultimately I stayed really bloated. So my digestive system has done a total 180 with carnivore, but I really was in a bad place with my digestion. As I mentioned, that incident that happened after my birthday, that was kind of just a result of things are not going well in my intestinal system. And So I experienced so much bloating to the point that I looked 6 or 7 months pregnant at the end of each and every day because of the bloating. And so maybe I was losing fat, maybe I was losing some weight on keto, but it wasn't evident because my belly just hurt and it was so distended and bloated. And so I knew I couldn't go back to a sad diet, but I wasn't sure how to proceed with keto because the tracking and whatnot was also really unsustainable. So one day I found on a Reddit thread somebody in the keto forum talking about, oh, I used to have cravings, but now that I'm carnivore, I don't have cravings anymore. And a light bulb went off. And I thought, oh my goodness, if there's a chance that I could live a life without cravings, I have got to try that out. So I did, and I slowly phased out the vegetables and brought in more meat, and then finally just committed to it one day in June of 2022. And I haven't looked back because those cravings went away. And that unfinished chocolate bar in the pantry remained unfinished in the pantry. And it was amazing to have food freedom for the first time in my life because I have always engaged in patterns of binging and restricting. And so, I'd go through times where I'm just eating everything in sight, sugar, paying no mind. And then I would reach a point where I'd look in the mirror and I would begin down this line of negative self talk. And I would really beat myself up and tear myself down to the point that I use self hatred to motivate myself to restrict. And that was so detrimental to my mental health
Mhm.
and to my own body image views. And so I was finally out of that cycle of feeling the urge to binge on these foods and then to turn around and be mean to myself. So I continued down this path of carnivore. And of course, I was in it initially just for the relief from cravings, and I got that. But I very quickly felt a huge release of anxiety and depression. Those symptoms began to lift relatively quickly within the first month for me. And that just felt phenomenal. I felt like I had, figured out the secret once I discovered keto. But carnivore was so much better because all that inflammation that was still taking place because I was still including a lot of inflammatory plants that my gut just could not handle. Without that being present, I was able to feel really good mentally and think clearly and be calm. And, my sleep started to improve and my skin started to improve. I had experienced things like tooth sensitivity that I just thought I had to live with. That went away when I dropped plants, which was wild. And another early thing that I noticed was, I had vaginal tenderness. And, anytime I'd go to wipe or anything, like very tender, but that went away. That sensitivity and pain went away. The frequent urination and that constant urge that I needed to go dissipated. And we as moms are often told, oh, once you have kids, if you laugh or you sneeze, you're going to wet your pants a little bit. Just accept it. But I don't have to deal with that anymore. My pelvic floor has been restored, and I don't deal with urinary incontinence anymore. And that was something that I had just taken as, oh, this is part of aging. This is part of being a mom, whatever. There's no solution. But just all of those benefits happened within a month to a month and a half. That is an amazing transformation on a physical level. Add in that mental component, and that has continued to improve over time as well. So within about maybe, I would say 5.5 months into carnivore, I was overcome with this carnivore calm or this zen that we talk about in this community, where I felt so good. And that negative self talk, that internal chatter where I would be mean to myself or, disparage myself in some way, it just quit talking. I did not have to put up with that mental chatter and that negativity anymore. It just stopped. And I was able to, for the first time, live in this place of peace and centeredness. And again, my relationship with my kids just flourished. And I really started enjoying my time with them and finding so much joy in those little moments that I had been totally blind to and had completely missed out on up to that point, which breaks my heart now for former Rebecca. Like, bless her heart, she was trying her best, but she missed out on so many good moments with her kid. But now I come to my relationship with my kids with so much gratitude for how I can be present with them and how I just really do cherish my time with them and seeing who they are and seeing their relationship together. But it has been a complete transformation for me. And I would not be in this place without carnivore. There was just no other option for me. And so my why remains, I started because I didn't want the cravings, and I've got that check. But I'm here every day doing carnivore day in, day out with no intention of ever leaving this way of eating because it has given me back that joy that I feel in life and connecting in relationships with others. And that's what life is all about, right? Like we
Yes.
are designed to be in community with each other. We are designed to have connection, meaningful conversation and connections, and to share in compassion and empathy with one another. So that's kind of been my driving force. And if you want me to continue, JT, I'd love to go into kind of chapter 2 of my.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, I'll keep going for it. So things were going great towards the end of 2022. I was on fire and I decided to follow a fasting protocol. Now, I had spent nearly all of that time eating in a very nourishing pattern, eating often 3+ times a day. Anytime I felt hunger, I responded with carnivore foods because I knew my body was coming at this from a deficit. I'd always binged and restricted. I just had 2 back-to-back pregnancies. I'd suffered with, all of this hormonal disruption, and I knew my gut still needed a lot of healing. So it wasn't necessarily taking in the nutrients as optimally as it could. So I'd spent 6 or 7 months nourishing my body. I thought I was ready for this fasting protocol and I was ready to put it to the test. And I did. And at first, it went great. In the first several iterations, I felt awesome. I could easily drop down to 2 MAD, and then I did OMADs, and then stretches of OMADs, and then I was doing 20 24-hour fast, then up to 36s, and then up to 48-hour fast. And I just thought, whoa, this is amazing. I'm finally dropping the excess weight I've gained on carnivore. I feel very creative, super duper calm with my kids, and I just felt good overall. But I missed several key signs in that process that I was actually over fasting, that I was pushing my hormonally sensitive, freshly recovered body too far. And I'd love to share what some of those are because I just,
Absolutely. Please do.
as carnivores, it kind of carnivore and fasting, those two lines of conversation kind of go hand in hand. So the first was that I had suggestive hunger, which of course, if you're going to skip a meal, totally fine. That hunger arises and you kind of can wait it out and it goes away. So that's totally normal. And I experienced that. But there comes a time where that suggestive hunger gets really, really loud. And it's not just like a gentle whisper in the background. It's like somebody's pounding on the door saying, you need to, let me in. I'm hungry, eat. But I just chalked it up to suggestive hunger and moved on. And then another thing that occurred was, I was experiencing a lot of headaches, which of course you can mitigate that, put a little salt under your tongue, up your electrolytes, kind of takes care of that. That was fine. And that's okay to do. But it was happening more and more frequently. And I was really having to rely on the salt. And that should have been a clue that, maybe I'm not quite ready for this. And then, of course, cold hands and feet. That happens when you fast. Your blood moves more towards your internal organs. Totally fine. It happens. Put on your socks, wear some gloves if you want. But I got to the point where I had core cold, where I could not get warm despite putting on layers and layers, down jackets, and I was still shivering. That's not okay. That was a sign that I pushed it too far. So while I ended the fast that day, I still went right back into this fasting protocol, as it picked up in the next few days. And let's see, what was the other one that was a big one? Oh, cold hands and feet, core cold. Oh, this one. Okay, so it was towards the end of the day. I'd been fasting, feeling great. And I started shaking compulsively, like could not stop. My voice was shaking, my
Really?
legs were vibrating, my hand, like I couldn't sit still. And I didn't know what was going on. But looking back, that was totally my adrenaline pumping into overdrive, telling me I need to get out there and go kill some food because there's, like you got to jump into action and provide some nourishment for yourself. But I totally ignored that. And I went to bed that night thinking, oh, okay, I'll just push through it. That was just a weird little symptom. But it was totally my body crying out in desperation, showing me that I was overtaxing it significantly. So finally, the last symptom that really kind of was enough for me was when I woke up knowing that I was supposed to start my rolling 48s. And so I was supposed to just not eat for 2 days, and then I'd eat and then not eat for 2 more days, that kind of thing. And I was furious at fasting. Now, how can you be mad at fasting? I don't know, but that's how I felt. I just wanted to push it away from me. I was irritated by the idea of fasting. And I just could feel this really psychological resistance. And that's finally when I got on the phone with my sister and she said, "Look, girl, this is not serving you. You don't owe anybody the completion of this protocol. Just end it and go back to nourishing your body." And I'm so thankful for her wisdom. I needed somebody to snap me out of that because I can be a little stubborn and really want to stick to things. And that has its merits, but in this case, I was really messing with my health. And the results and the fallout from that were significant. So I went back to nourishing and I thought, oh, okay, I can just take a break for 3 or 4 days, go back to eating 2 or 3 meals a day, and I'll be fine. But that did not happen at all. My hunger went into overdrive, and I was suddenly eating huge amounts of meat 3 times a day, sometimes adding a fourth little snack or something, hungry all the time, and cravings returned. So my number one reason for starting this way of eating, cravings, I'm suddenly sitting there thinking, whoa, I want to eat those cookies. That ice cream is tempting. And my family, they don't stay carnivore. So all the temptation was all around. And I was so scared that I was going to cave. But instead of giving into those cravings, every time I felt a craving, I would just nourish with carnivore foods. Now, that hunger combined with those cravings and the way that I chose to respond to that and meeting it with carnivore foods led to over consuming more than I needed for maintenance, right? Like I was eating way more than I logically knew my body would be able to use.
That's where I'm at now. Like, since I've have less body fat, I feel like I'm so hungry all of the time. When I hear people
Mm,
do OMAD, I'm like, there's no way. Like, I eat all damn day.
yeah, right, right. And so you feel that hunger, and it's like you've got to decide how to respond to it. Like maybe you can white knuckle it, but that hunger along with the cravings, I couldn't do that. I had to just eat. So I gained more weight. Now I had gained some weight in the first 6 7 months of carnivore, but I was okay with it because I knew that that was part of my healing journey. But now I was gaining more weight post fasting, and I was really sitting there panicking. Like, what am I going to do? I don't fit in my clothes. I definitely didn't feel good, and I have had and struggled with lifelong body image issues. So you know what? It's kind of like this was the universe's way of being like, girl, it is time to face your demons when it comes to loving yourself. So it totally sucked to gain the weight and to hang out with the weight and look in the mirror and not feel good. But you know what? Out of that next stretch of time, which lasted, I would say, 6 months, it took a good 3 months for my hunger to quiet to anything resembling reasonable to go back to just
Mm.
3 meals a day. And even then, it took another 3 months for me to get to a place where I didn't need snacks throughout the day. So, a good 6 months after this over fasting period for my hunger to begin to regulate to what I would consider a more normal appetite, to more of maintenance level hunger. And I just had to lean in to this opportunity to love myself and to accept myself as I am and find my value in something other than the amount of space that I take up, which was a revolutionary concept for me because, in my mind, being slim, being, on the leaner side made me feel safe, made me feel included, made me feel accepted. And if others felt these things about me, then it was okay for me to feel that about myself.
Mm.
But now I've had the opportunity to turn the tables, and now I get to choose that I accept myself, that I love myself, and that my value comes from within. But I would not have done that inner work if I had not been blessed with the opportunity to accumulate some excess energy stores. So that's what I did, and that's totally fine. And in the end, I'm so grateful because I have now, within the last 2 months, reached a point where, I can genuinely say that I believe that we can follow our hunger throughout all of that time of overeating or eating more than was needed for daily maintenance. I really questioned the carnivore logic. You can eat to satiety, like your hunger will regulate. I really was questioning that. I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to go back to tracking. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep going. But my hunger did start to regulate and calm down. And I'm now at the point over the last 2 months where I am able to easily do 2 meals a day. And I don't do it every day. I always listen to my body. If I want that third meal, I'll have it. But I'll say that overall, I would say more than 50% of my days are 2 meals a day. And I'm not talking about by the end of the day, for dinner, I'm like, oh, should I eat? Should I not eat? And then saying, oh, no, I'm not going to. It's like, I don't want that third meal. And that is just my body telling me it's good. I did not know if I would reach that place. We hear all the time that you can just keep eating and your body will tell you when it's had enough. Well, for me, it just took longer. And especially after that over fasting, I mentioned being hormonally sensitive. I still experience those sensitivities. If I start disrupting some of my circadian rhythm habits, or, if I don't eat within an hour or two of waking, I'll have trouble sleeping that night. That shows up in my
Mm,
cortisol spike at night. So I definitely have to be mindful of all of these hormonally supportive measures. And, but I can say now from experience, at least in my experience, you can trust your hunger. And so going through that period of time really allowed me to lean into that that wisdom and that mindset. And honestly, there were times where I considered, should I bring back in carbs? Like maybe I should be having some seasonal berries. Maybe I need to bring in some veggies just to kind of help fill my belly and not have to eat as much nutrient dense food, since I knew I was kind of over nourishing. But curiosity is what allowed me to continue. I really just wanted to know if if I stay carnivore, if I keep honoring my hunger day in and day out, even when it drives me nuts, what's on the other side of this for me? And I'm still on the cusp of figuring it out. I only within the last couple months have been able to drop down to 2 meals a day sometimes. But that feels like a tremendous, you know, um, I guess, result of remaining patient, remaining consistent, and staying carnivore. There
mm.
are plenty of people in this sphere where they find that they feel best by including other foods. However, I don't feel like that would be right for me because I know my inability to moderate foods. I am so fearful. If I take a bite of something that is not carnivore, I'm going down that rabbit hole. And I even this last week was a little tempted. I made a pumpkin bread for my family and for the school teachers, with leftover pumpkins that we had. And, normally I can tell myself, oh, I know what things taste like. I can smell it. I know exactly what it tastes like because I've eaten plenty of foods, but I'd never had pumpkin bread. And I definitely never had this recipe that I'd made. And my husband said, oh, this is the best thing you've ever made. You've got to try it. I just want you to have a bite. And I was like, look, you wouldn't tell an alcoholic, "Hey, you gotta have this beer. This IPA is
Just
phenomenal."
some good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I was like, "If I eat a bite of that pumpkin bread, I will be 347 pounds in no time. I will not be able to stop." So, I just know that about myself, or at least that is where I feel like I am at this point in my journey. I'm certainly open to that potentially changing in the future, but I just personally don't want to risk it. I don't want to try that. I feel really good on carnivore, and having these clear cut guidelines of what to eat and what not to eat. Does it have a mother? Did it have a face? Did it come from an animal? It's very simple and straightforward. And those kind of I don't want to call them rules, but those guidelines, they serve as like rail posts for me. They keep me in line, and they give me the boundaries that I need to be able to move confidently forward. And certainly when I was going through that period of kind of having over fasted and needing to respond to my hunger and respond to cravings, I brought in a lot more dairy. I even tried raw milk and raw kefir during that time because I was out in California, so I had access to those things. And oh man, it was so good. But, still technically carnivore, animal based, however you want to classify it. But I was willing to expand my carnivore foods horizon to meet that need that I had at that time, which for me was mitigating cravings and hunger. And it really served me to kind of take away some of my own kind of preconceived notions that really you should only eat meat or eggs, or no, Eat what makes you feel good, eat what serves you best in that moment, at that point in time, and then respond to it. I mean, I definitely don't feel my best when I incorporate a lot of dairy. I feel much better when I leave it out. Does that mean I always say no to dairy? No. But I just recognize its impact on me and accept it and calculate that into my decision making process if I'm going to include it or not. And ultimately I do feel like I am back on the path to feeling good, to feeling like I've got my bearings again. I've gotten back that calm and that peace. After the over fasting, I mentioned the appetite and cravings because that's what really was heightened for me. But I also had a return of anxiety and even some depression symptoms. But have like feeling like I was back in those times of anxiety, that was really hard because I thought I'd said goodbye to that. And I know that mental health healing is not linear. However, I just really didn't think I'd have to deal with that again. But I did. And once again, I've allowed carnivore to be that nourishing protocol that allows me to heal and to allow my brain to quiet and calm and for my nervous system to reset. And I'm experiencing those benefits again. And that kind of leads me around to this latest thing I've done, and that is launching the carnivore wellness community.
Let me pull up
So,
your channel while you tell us about that because I wanted you to break us off on that.
yeah, yeah. So, thank you. And I will also put the link to join that community in the chat if anyone
Yes.
is interested. So I was part of a community when I first started carnivore, and it was immensely helpful for me, especially as I went through a lot of early struggles. I had a lot of digestive healing. So I had digestive issues for several months. I experienced headaches around, different times in my hormonal monthly cycle. I experienced sleeplessness, which was kind of surprising, some hair loss, which was a little bit challenging and confusing. And I still was really struggling for quite a while, and being in community with other people and uh, being able to share my story and to get some feedback was very helpful. So I have since started my own community, and in this space, it's hosted on the Mighty Networks platform. And in this space, I host 3 weekly meetings where it's just carnivores who show up and chat about what they are going through. So sharing their stories and their experiences, talking about their reason for doing this, knowing their why behind why they choose to eat intentionally. And also just kind of setting goals for ourselves, setting an intention for the week, and then gaining accountability by speaking up and voicing that in the meetings, or posting it on the chat thread within the community. So this just gives us another place where we can feel safe and supported and encouraged. There's always a lot of outside opinions, outside voices, but I really just wanted to create a loving space where we can lift one another up and support each other and share our stories. JT, I'm so glad that you have on carnivores to talk, because I really feel like there's so much power in the story. We can learn the science behind it all day long. But when you see yourself or your experience or your struggle reflected in somebody else's story, it grabs at you and it
It
pulls at
means the
you.
world, doesn't it? When you can relate to somebody, you don't feel so alone out there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And you feel like you're connected, and that's what we need to feel good. And so I've created this community. For right now, membership is completely free. We're going into the holidays. It is, I think, this is one of the hardest times of year
It's gonna
to
make or
sit.
break people's diets. I feel like they had 9 months of the year where they're all good, but these last 3 months,
Yes,
they can just totally ruin your whole progress that you've made all year if you don't.
yes,
So
yes.
support network, it's a support network. It's so
It is.
important.
Yes. I mean, we're coming up, like, you've got all sorts of holiday parties, all sorts of traditions that are centered around food. I mean, come on, Thanksgiving, yeah, we give thanks, but we sit down and eat,
I'm
right?
having a
And
ribeye this Thanksgiving. I don't care what
yes.
nobody says. I'm having a
Oh, yeah.
ribeye.
Absolutely. Me too. I'm gonna have to pack my own because I don't think that'll be offered at the big families spread, but that's okay. So it's we've got to be mindful of how we show up to these social events, and also, kind of have some strategies in your back pocket, like eat before you go. Maybe write down in a journal what you're feeling about the situation before you go into it. Write out your game plan. Have a few responses to potential questions that you might be asked, and kind of pre-think through how you want to answer them if you want to answer them. Nobody says you have to. And kind of just kind of arming yourself for some of those times so that you can go in there and rather than focusing on the food or the challenge of resisting the food, be able to focus on the quality of the conversation and the relationships and those meaningful moments gathered together to really get out of these holidays and these times of gathering together in community what it's really about.
Mhm.
It's not about the food. The food is a distraction, but it can be so helpful to know that you have people in your corner who are supporting you, who are backing you up, and who are going through the same thing and looking to make and maintain those same goals and objectives for themselves.
It's vital to be my coach taught me that if you wanna change your paradigm, change those habits, the way you think, you have
Yeah,
to get around people who think differently, and you
yeah.
can't be enabled by people who aren't, at a higher vibration. So, it pays to be around the right minded people. Not saying you don't want anybody to not challenge your beliefs, but when it comes to supporting your new thoughts, you want to be around
Mhm.
like minded people.
Right, right. And you want to be around people who understand where you are and where you're going. And that's what's great about a community. You have people at all different levels, and in the carnivore wellness community, we welcome all meat eaters. We welcome all people at wherever they are on their journey. So you do not have to be 100% carnivore to have a seat at the table. If you are just interested, if you're just starting to incorporate more meat, if you're just trying to maybe drop sugar or reduce it, this is still a place for you because I feel like I needed someone back when I was struggling to reach out and pull me forward. And if we can provide a place for people to have that sense of hope and to have that access to the information that will allow them to transform their health, then I would just be so honored to be a part of helping people find their path forward. And all of you can be part of that too by coming, joining in, showing up, sharing your story, sharing your advice, tips, tricks, helpful hints. We all lean on each other. And, another key piece of being in community is it's one thing to master the diet side, right? And it's pretty easy these days to find the information on what to eat, how to eat, different recipes, things like that. But where I personally have experienced a lack is in the support for the personal growth and development and self-discovery that goes on alongside this transformation and this big shift. Because let's face it, when you have a big life shift, it impacts every facet of your life. For example, I'll share and be a little vulnerable with you. When I started carnivore, it was helping me and I was healing and feeling great. However, this impacted my relationship with my husband in a few ways because I was no longer cooking dinner for him. We weren't sitting down to eat meals together because I was eating when I was hungry. And, there was he saw the benefits and he supported me in that, but we weren't doing the same kind of activities we'd done together. We were no longer going to the brewery together. We were no longer, going out to eat to, just enjoy a different change of pace, change of scenery. And a lot of my free time was spent consuming more carnivore content to help me bolster my reason and my understanding of why I was eating this way. And so there was a strain there, and we had to kind of talk through and work on some of that. And it was a challenge, and nobody else was really talking about that, but I could have used some support and some, just kind of, I guess, empathy in that situation and maybe even some guidance of people who had navigated that before as well. And
True.
then again, as I mentioned in gaining the weight post over fasting, I really had increased in size much more than I ever expected. And I had to go through that process of learning to love and accept myself. And that was not easy work to do. And there are thankfully people who share their stories and, add their contribution to the body of what it is to gain weight on carnivore and then eventually see that taper down. But when you're in the middle of it, when you're going through it, you need support, you need help, you need someone to just kind of remind you that you're on the right track, that you're doing the right thing, and that in honoring your body, honoring your hunger, you're also leaning into self-love and leaning into self-acceptance and marrying those two concepts together. And so eating this way for me has become an act of self-care and an act of self-love, which was something that was totally missing from my life in, before motherhood and definitely in the early days of motherhood. So just overall, My mission is to create a place where people can do that, and if you wanna be a part of that, I would be so honored to have you join. And JT, of course, thank you so much for giving me the space to talk about that and to share that opportunity with people. And just like you are reaching people and connecting with others, that is such a beautiful thing, and I'm so thankful that we have people like you in this space.
I appreciate that. It's a passion of mine. Carrie shared my story, and it helped me get it off my chest. It helped me relate
Mm,
to other folks who could have used that story. And luckily he shared his story, and it changed my life. And I
mm,
knew just the power of someone sharing their story because it changed my life. I said, man, I have to dedicate my life now to sharing more stories and helping people change lives. Like, I don't, I've had a near death experience, and until you're
mm,
near your last breath, you really don't have a perspective, a deep one. It might
mm,
be all shallow and superficial like mine was. And now
mhm,
I have a lot deeper perspective on how I look at things. Like you said, just enjoying the moments with my family more, and
mhm.
I'm a lot more connected. And part of that is the carnivore diet. It helped get me rid of that brain fog because I
Yeah,
started improving, doing self improvement, reading books and things like that when I didn't feel well, and I was
mhm,
making improvements inside. Yeah,
mhm,
I made a lot of different life changes. I left the music scene, and I did a lot of things when I didn't feel well that were good for me,
mhm.
but I didn't have the right diet, and I still felt physically like crap, even though mentally I was starting to get a little bit healthier. Does that make sense? And then
Oh,
I
totally.
feel
I
like
mean,
the
that was
physical health helped complete that. I was maybe like 80% better mentally by reading some
mhm,
books and raising my awareness,
right,
but that diet helped sealed in that last 20% because I actually have the energy now and the more positive attitude to want to even read even more and to teach
right,
people what I've learned and things like that. So it's
right.
it's a two it's a your mental health. You got to have mental toughness, especially
Mhm.
as being a parent. It's tough, when they that first
Yes,
year they just constantly waking up, they're hungry, and you don't get much sleep. And I
yeah.
did that first year, unfortunately, with my son, without carnivore.
Oh, I
And I
know,
wish I
I
would have
know.
had it now. Like, I would have been such a better father. But
Yes.
man, you just get so tired and so worn out that first year.
Mm,
You have to have mental toughness out here, but it helps though when you have a proper nutritional diet that's going to help your body help you. You can read all the books you want, but you have to
mhm,
eat better too. And I think the combination is going to make you feel so good. And that's what
absolutely.
you got going on here in the Carnivore Wellness. You guys, if you guys could go right now and subscribe to Rebecca's channel, I have it up right here, Carnivore Wellness. Just go into your search bar on YouTube and type in Carnivore Wellness. And you guys, look, she's even live right now. She's live right now. She's working on content as we speak. I watched a bunch of your videos today. It's great. I subscribed. I'm not signed in right
Thank you.
now, but I am subscribed.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, and you are such a fluent speaker.
Mm,
Uh, you tell your story very well. I can just tell that you are very connected with your body now and your
mm,
mind, and you've got mental clarity. I can just tell and I'm proud of you. I'm really proud that you're
thank you.
listening to your body. And you know you went through some of those struggles alone, as far as not having like a carnivore mentor, or to
Mhm,
say, but in that happened for a reason. It's making
mm,
you a better leader, and you have a
mm,
newfound awareness because reading things in a book and then actually having the experience are two different things. And you've
yes.
went through some of these things now, and you'll be the perfect person for people to come to when they're going through them because you not only went through them, but you had to learn the hard way. You had to learn, and I think that's going to just make you a sharper tool for when you're helping people. So kudos to you.
Mhm,
I really feel like some of the worst things that happen to us set us up for some of the best things in life.
mhm,
So, I'm glad that I felt like crap and found this diet because I
right.
not only now feel better, but I'm helping other people feel better. So the worst thing in my life really did set me up for the best thing. And I believe that. And I think you're one of those people as well. You're gonna
Yes.
be very blessed that you haven't went through that. It sucked at the
Yeah.
time.
Oh, yeah, it was brutal. I
You don't
felt
want it
broken
more.
and totally, helpless in a lot of those
Yeah.
moments. but I wouldn't trade it for the world because now I'm living a life that means something. And the quality of my relationships is so significantly improved. And I also have so much more potential that I have yet to tap into that I just feel brewing under the surface, you know. And I think that's one of the best things about this is, you know, eating this way allows you to tap into that limitless potential. It is in all of us. We are capable of so much more than we ever give ourselves credit for. We've just got to lean into it. And JT, seriously, thank you for those kind words. That warmed my heart so much. I really appreciate that. You're so kind. I really feel seen by you, and that's empowering. So thank you for that.
Well, you know, and I appreciate you putting yourself out there because I wouldn't have a podcast and I would have nobody for me to. You're helping me help people by letting me share your story on here, and I appreciate the hell out of you for that. And I really
Yeah,
I enjoy this because you're very informative. You're very nice. You seem like you have a very welcoming energy. So I suggest people to go up and sign up for the Carnivore Wellness. And she said it's free right now, so don't sleep
totally
on
free.
that. You know,
Yeah.
and it's funny. Like a lot of people are, you know, they'll wait till the New Year's for a New Year's resolution. I was telling
Hmm.
people I made a video, plan for success, create the life you want.
Yes.
We should take these last 2 months of the year,
Hmm.
and my coach would always say, if you want momentum for the new year coming, you have to sprint in the new year. A lot of
Mm.
people this time of the year, they're like, hey, I worked hard all year. I'm
Hmm.
going to relax with my family. I'm going to lay off the gas. What
Hmm.
race car driver, NASCAR or racer, you know, someone who races, does track, when they
Hmm.
see the finish line, when do they say, ah, now I'm gonna start jogging now?
Right. I'll
No,
just
no.
coast.
Yeah, no, you see the finish line, that's when you start just saying, "Well, whatever, I'm cramping up, but, like,
Hmm.
I'm giving it everything I got." When you see the finish line, that's when you gas it. That's when you give
Hmm.
it more, and I feel like we need to empower people to do that, to gas it, man. This is the end of the year, we can all see the finish line, there's only 2 less than 2 months now, we're already into it, like,
Yeah.
this is the time to gas it, and what better way to gas it than signing up for something that's free at the moment and very valuable. And it's
Yes.
she's got support, she's got info, she's got the food plans,
Hmm.
everything. And then, like I just said, she herself has got experience in this. So if you do have questions, she's the perfect person to go to because she's not just read the book, she's been through this, she's walked the walk, and she's talking the talk now. So I appreciate you. We need more people out here doing that. And I like that it's free right now. You're gonna, if you guys don't sign
Yeah.
up for that, telling you, man, you're missing out. I'm gonna sign up myself. So if you could
Awesome. Well, I'd be
put the
so
link in there
excited, so
again,
honored to have
Rebecca.
any of you.
If you could put the link in there again, that would
Yeah,
be
let me throw
awesome.
that up there real quick.
Yep.
And again, yeah, anyone is welcome to join. There's even a free e-course. I don't know that many of you necessarily need to know how to carnivore yet. You know, you've probably already mastered that, but there is also a free e-course in there that does contain some really great resources. I've also pulled together a collection of resource articles. Sorry, excuse me, research articles, and kind of pulled out the abstract from some of those studies so that if you kind of want to look into more of the science, you can at least get pointed in the right direction. I know sometimes, you know, when we're trying to explain to our families, especially how this is possibly healthy or good for us, it can feel good to just kind of have a little stack of places that you can turn to show them some scientific information, you know,
To
the
defend
research
yourself,
behind
you know,
these
to
different
you can
practices.
defend
So
yourself properly.
right, right. Yes. Yes. And then of course, I've got a little workshop activity in there about know your why and kind of going through the process of taking time to journal and write down, you know, kind of where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go, and using that to create a cohesive statement or, you know, mantra that you can then, you know, have a quick little almost like an elevator speech for yourself for why you're choosing to do this each and every day, so that when you find yourself in those moments of struggle or temptation or whatever the case may be, you have that piece for you, that why, for, you know, why you continue to choose this day in and day out. So there's a lot of great information there. You know, come check it out, and if it's not for you, that's totally fine, but I think there will be something there for everybody.
Oh,
And, you know,
absolutely.
3 weekly Zoom calls, where, right now the group is very small. So when you come to those meetings, you will have the opportunity to talk. It's not like you're in a room with a bunch of other people and, maybe you're a little shy or hesitant. That's totally fine if you don't want to share. But sometimes it's easier to share when you're in a smaller group. It's less intimidating. So, maybe that's a really a positive thing.
Oh, small
Some
classrooms
communities are,
teach the most. I believe
yeah,
that because then you
yeah,
got less people to teach. You can really focus in on for now.
right.
Wait for it to pick up and just keep doing it. I'm telling you
Mhm.
guys, go and sign up for it. And we do have a question here, Renee. No insanity question. How long have you been carnivore, Rebecca?
So since June of 2022, I believe that's 17 months at this point. And
You're running
truthfully, guys,
circles around me, girl.
well, and it's so funny. I remember when I started, I thought, oh my gosh, like 2.5 months carnivore. Wow, that's a lot. Or like 3 months, 4 months. And the people who were a year plus, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how they do it. Like they're amazing. But here I am. And it has served me so well, even through all of those struggles, that I've stuck with it with really without a whole lot of questioning. I really have found that this is for me. And it's just been such a blessing that the time has here's the thing. Time is going to pass regardless of what you do. Do you want to improve your health and improve your well-being and find yourself, on the path to personal growth and development, or do you want to stay stagnant and stay right where you are or even
And live with
backslide?
regrets, right? Oof,
Right. The
the
time's
worst
gonna
thing
pass
to live
anyway.
with. Mm.
Yeah.
I'd rather have hemorrhoids than regrets. I'm telling you, folks. I'm
Okay.
telling you.
Going carnivore, it cleared up those hemorrhoids right away,
Yes,
so,
everything, sleep apnea, IBS, everything. It's all gone. I'm all healed, and now I have new goals, to bulk up, and, it's nice to be healed, though, and to be able
mm,
to set new goals rather than, "Hey, I
yeah,
just wanna not feel like crap." That was such a first goal, just to
mhm.
not feel like crap. What's your favorite benefit you'd say about, the carnivore diet that you've received?
I mean, the mental clarity,
Yeah.
no doubt about it. The mental clarity and the confidence and the calm that comes from that. It's been life changing for me. I've kind of always struggled with anxiety in some form. It got really intense after postpartum, all that time of my life. But the mental clarity is what keeps me here and feeling calm and feeling self assured and feeling like myself. Um, I really was lost for a long time, and I
Me too.
didn't I couldn't connect with myself, but now that comes naturally and effortlessly. And, on the days when I am feeling a little off, because truthfully that does happen, I just go for a quick little hike in the woods and I feel totally restored. Start my day off with a nourishing carnivore breakfast within an hour or so of waking up. And then I go spend some time in the woods. And that sets me on the right track for the rest of the day.
Take that bear spray with you, girl.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
them have it. Scooby the dog, Ellen. Yes, free of charge helps. I'd love to, but can't support all these platform and paid memberships. Yeah, so get in while it's free. Otherwise, you might just be kicking yourself later.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to make sure that it's free through the holidays. It's one of the most challenging times. So, come and get the support that you need for now. And if you want to stick around once it becomes, a paid membership, I'll work on that kind of stuff in the coming months. But, even if you only come and enjoy that for just a little bit of time, that is totally okay too. I'm so open to that. I would love to have anyone come and share. We always can learn from each other's stories. The same way that JT holds these conversations so that, he can feature different people's stories like mine tonight, for which I'm so grateful for this time and space. You know, that's kind of what we're doing. We're just letting people come and share their stories and connect with others.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I've been blessed with a second chance at life, and I promised God that I would not take it for granted. I gonna enjoy every breath, even if I'm by a farm, buying ribeyes and I smell cow shit. I appreciate everything, and I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys. I almost bit the dust and I wouldn't even get to know
Mm.
you, Rebecca. So I am blessed to not only get to know you, but I'm blessed to help you share your story. It's an
Thank
honor.
you.
It really
Thank
is,
you.
folks. Really is. Now, you guys go and subscribe. I like these small channels groups better than the large mega ones. Yeah, it's more intimate. You get more direct service, and it's easier to serve people when there's not so many people to serve, in my
Mm.
opinion. But This has been. I want to respect your time. Do you have any time for questions, or
Thank
do you got
you.
to roll right away?
Yeah, I can take a couple. I hear the kids in the bath, they're wrapping up, but I'd be happy to give you another 5 or 10 minutes,
Okay.
certainly.
I'll just maybe they. If you guys got any questions, put a Q in front of it. I'll just check real quick. But otherwise, you were very informative. They might have already got all the info they needed. Uh,
Awesome.
yeah, this is. Let's see here. Let's see. Pumpkin bread. Wow, so many comments, you guys. You guys are really talking tonight.
I'll check it out.
I just subscribed to Rebecca's channel. It looks interesting. Yes, it is. She has a lot of great info, and don't let the numbers get to you. You got to keep just doing what you're doing, because I learned that most of the time, when these big YouTubers, they start getting their numbers, they were
Mhm.
doing the same thing they were doing before. It's just you have to keep sticking to it. It's not a big drastic change in content. It's not
Yeah.
like all of a sudden you hit this epiphany and like, oh well, that's why I wasn't getting a million views.
Mhm.
It's just all of a sudden one day the algorithm will recognize you like it's never recognized you, and you're like, man, I've always been doing the same content for a while, but you just got to
Yeah.
stick in there with YouTube. So
Yeah. Mhm.
John says I
Yeah.
already sub. There you go.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate that. He
Yeah,
brought several folks over.
he sent you my way. He said, she'd be a good
Mhm.
one to have on there. And I said, absolutely, I'll reach out to her. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad you messaged me back here. Oh,
Absolutely.
here we
Thank
go.
you.
Have you done any hiking lately, Rebecca?
Yes, just this morning. Most mornings I drop the kids off at school and then I will pick one of the mini trails nearby. So this morning I went up a little trail that takes me to the waterfall. And so went and kind of sat down there and did a little light meditation. The dog was kind of running around and splashing. So not too much real deep meditation was going on. But the day before, I had gone and hiked up to a little ridge peak over here, and that looks out over the Nolichucky River. And so yeah, most days I go and get in the woods at least for 40 minutes to an hour or so, and that just always sets the stage for the day.
Do you ever do any grounding?
Oh, well, yes, yes. As you know, it's so funny. Sometimes I'm hiking and I'm outside, but I'll just feel compelled to put my hands on the ground, because my tennis shoes obviously are kind of preventing some of that. Like reach out, touch the trees, or I'll just sit there and lean into the ground or lean into a mossy bank. Yes, I do. And when I was after the over fasting period, when I was really being very intentional with trying to heal my hormones, I woke up, went outside barefoot, grounded every day, looked at the bright, or the coming up morning sunlight, just as it was rising. And, I definitely do keep my circadian rhythm practices. I could be a little more rigid with them, of course, but I definitely do incorporate those most days.
That's awesome. Well, you
Yeah.
guys, this has been a blast here. I learned a lot, even just not just about you, but a lot of things. I really think there's going to be a lot of carnivore moms too that want to group up with you, because
I hope so.
yeah, and if you I know a couple gals with interview shows. Have you been on Meeting Wellness?
I have not, no.
She's got a lioness show. I'm gonna send you her way if that's okay.
Oh, yes. No, I believe she did. The lioness, the ladies, yes,
Hmm.
yes. I'm actually booked to speak with them in February, I
Oh,
believe.
okay. So I don't. Yeah, she's already got you in there. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, she
cool,
grabbed me
cool.
after John's interview, so I appreciate that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you guys, thank Rebecca for sharing her story. It was awesome. I had a blast. Did you have fun? Would you come back sometime?
Oh, this is my favorite thing to do. I love chatting all things carnivore. JT, thank you so much, and thank you for letting me just kinda ramble on and share my story. I really
Oh,
appreciate that.
it's worth it. I hope it felt good for me to get it off my chest. It's your
Yeah,
story. It's what you've been going through, and it's so important. It's so
it
important.
is.
It's your story, like it's your
Right,
life. It's
right.
important. Well, you guys,
Exactly.
my coach always says the first law of learning is repetition. So please replay this. There's a lot of value in
Mhm.
Rebecca, and there's value in her story. And we went through a
Mhm.
lot of really good stuff, including her program that you can sign up for free. So do not sleep on that. Go subscribe to Carnivore Wellness. Show her some carnivore love. I would very much appreciate that, Tiger Gang. I know you guys are a small group, but you're very supportive. That's it for this episode, you guys. I'll catch you again this week. Thank you and goodbye, Rebecca. I'll talk to you
Awesome.
in a
Thank you
second.
so much, JT. Y'all have